There's some things that have kept you stuck in your life. And today you didn't come here for me to motivate you. You didn't come here for me to tap dance on your emotions. You came here for some strategies to help you get to the next level. Can I tell you today that one dream can change the rest of your life? Not all the dreams, but the one that God gave you. I'm going to tell you, man, I was, a young kid, like in the middle school, elementary time period in my life. And I remember looking around my life and seeing everybody else's greatness and wondering and asking God, what is it that he had for me to do? I remember joining the Marine Corps, looking around, man. I remember seeing people who were stronger than me, faster than me, wiser than me. And I'm saying, God, you got me here for a reason. Why is it that I'm in the Marine Corps? I've been here for 8 years, 10 years, and I'm only 20% fulfilled, and 80% I'm miserable. But to everybody else's perspective, as I was a high achiever, I climbed the rank structure, I got the pay, the promotion, the prestigious jobs, but in my heart I knew that God was calling me to something greater. And so every time re-enlistment would come, instead of listening to what I knew God was calling me to do, I did what was comfortable, and I stayed. I did what was easy, and I stayed. I stayed where the money was. I stayed where the benefits was. I stayed where the prestige was. I stayed where everything was already methodically set out for me. Why? Because I didn't trust God the way I said I trusted God. And the truth is that a lot of us, we talk about faith. We sing about faith. We even got a t-shirt with faith on it. But when it's time for you to have some, you have none. The truth is, people like Ira, why do you take people and you dive out of planes from 13,000 feet? And the truth is because I want you to understand that your faith talking is not the same as your faith living. It's time for some of you to put your faith where your mouth has been. Because we've been talking about what we're going to do. We've been strategizing about what we're going to do. We got how many of you got like 16 notebooks of what you're about to do? Can I tell you that this is a season where God is saying, it's time for you to put the pen down and start walking. It's time for you to stop talking and start living. I want you to know something today, that the size of your dream will determine the legacy of your life. I was doing some research the other day, and one of the people that I love the most in the world is Walt Disney. And it was amazing to me that a young man came from the Midwest with like $20 or $40 in his pocket, came to Hollywood with a dream in his heart that he was going to take a mouse and turn him into a mogul. And I'm looking at you today as I study Disney, and I see that they've made billions of dollars. They have multiple Academy Awards. They have multiple movies and multiple companies. And I'm looking at people today who sit here and tell me that their big dream is impossible. When one man took a mouse and changed the world. And here's what I want you to know. That while you sitting there crying about the dream that has not worked for you, while you're sitting there asking God to answer prayers that he's already answered, there are people around the world who have struggled, who are crying, who are desperately seeking the thing that God has already put on the inside of you. I came to tell you today, stop praying for what God has already answered. Stop walking past people hoping that they're going to get what they're supposed to get from somebody else when God has already positioned you to be the person, to be the miracle for their prayer. There's some people in this room who have the cure that the person sitting next to you has been on their knees praying and fasting for. But because you're too scared to be who you've been called to be, you're too scared to do it differently than everybody else does it. Well, Ira is a little bit of church. He's a little bit of business. He's a little bit of growth. He's a little bit of faith. Doggone it, I'm going to be who God called me to be. Amen. And I came to tell you today that the limits that you placed on your life is nothing more than a prison of your mind. Most of you are sitting here today and you have not accomplished the thing that God has called you to do, not because anybody else said or did anything to you. It's because you have put yourself in a mental prison. You put yourself there. I want you to know this morning, that if you took the limits off of God if you took the limits off of your dream, if you took the limits off of your faith, some of you, your life would look completely different. Your family's life will look completely different. Your legacy will look completely different. Here's the truth. I was just talking to somebody backstage, and I said, how did we get here? I was just one dude sitting in my apartment walk-in closet. You do the math. A walk-in closet in an apartment. The audacity. I was sitting in my walk-in closet. That was my office. And a skydiving video came on at 2 a.m. in the morning that changed my life. And I remember God said so clear to me. He said, son, you see skydiving, but I want you to call it dream diving. I said, God, what is that? He said, I got too many people who are trying to hit a target they don't have and a target they can't see. He said, I got too many people who want to jump into things knowing that they've been called but have not done the preparation work to be the man or the woman that he's called them to be. He said, I'm looking for some people who are willing to sell out and go all in for the thing that I've called them to do. I'm looking for some people who are willing to submit themselves to the process of becoming greater than great, of becoming humble while also remaining courageous. I'm looking for some people who are willing to go to 13,000 feet and dive headfirst into the dream that I've called them to. I said, God, that sounds cool, Mary. I said, God, that sounds cool. We can do that. That's awesome. I'm excited after all these years of not knowing what I was born to do. And then he said, by the way, you have to become a skydiver too. And I was like, time out, not going to do it. I'm black. We don't just go diving out of planes. And here's what God said to me. He said, I got too many people teaching, preaching, and speaking things that they don't live. You won't be one of them. Can I tell you today, it's time to stop talking about it. It's time to start putting your life where God has called you to be. It's time for you to stop dancing and tiptoeing around other people's feelings and emotions and start being exactly who and what you have been called to be. I want to ask you a question this morning. What would your life look like if you took the limits off your dream? Yeah. What would your life look like if you, let me tell you how we got here today. 3 years ago, Sean and I, we came here with a dream in our heart. And I sat down with the GM of Skydive Elsinore and I said this. I said, sir, one day I'm going to bring a group of people here who are high-performing, audacious and driven individuals who have been called to go the distance, to do what most people won't do. And I want to have an event here where I get to pour into their souls and help them take the limits off their dreams and then take them up to 13,000 feet to show them that in God all things are possible. Amen. And he looked at me, he stood up. He stood up and he came across the table. He said, look at me, young man. Put your hand out. He said, let's give Tony Robbins a run for his money. He said, whatever you need, you got it. Whatever we can do, you got it. Can I tell you today that big dreams start with crazy instructions? Whenever God is calling you to do something, it is never going to make linear sense in your natural mind. It's never going to make sense in your natural mind. Some people will say, man, listen, you don't have to do all that. You can do what you do on the ground. You don't have to take people up in the sky. Let me tell you something. If you can do it in the air, you can do it anywhere. Yes. If I can get you to understand that the concept of going all in and trusting the God who called you to your assignment, he won't shield you from it, but doggone it, he's got your back. And when you free falling in that sky, you understand that God is not going to cover you from the pain and the trauma and the journey and the isolation and the character building and the character development that you must go through in order to become who you were called to be. He's not going to shield you from it, but he's got your back. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. He's going to be right there with you every step of the way. There were times where we were hungry. My family, we were broke. We didn't have $20 to our name, and guess what I was doing? Discover your purpose, die for your dreams. Every single day. There was times when nobody was checking for Ira Davis, and I went to my wife. My brother-in-law was there. I went to my wife, and I said, you know what? I feel God is saying we need to throw the couches out in our living room to start broadcasting the message that he's given me from here. The nerve of me in a 900-square-foot apartment to ask my wife to give me her living room. Ladies, you know the living room is sacred. Come on. I said, I believe we need to turn our living room into a lighthouse. My wife said, because she She's gangster. She said, it's past time. She said it's beyond time. Can I tell you today, man, you got to get some people around you who say, hey, you've been there way too long. I need you to get up and go do what you said you was going to do. The truth is that most people will recognize who you are before you recognize who you are. Joseph, my man with many colors in the Bible, his brothers knew who he was way before he ever had an epiphany of who God had called him to be. He had a dream, but he had no revelation. Can I tell you today, if you want to know who you are and the magnitude of the dream in your heart, look at the size and the twinkle of your reflection in people's eye when they look at you. When my wife married me, I was broken, I was broke. And I'm like, why did she marry me? It's because when she looked at me, she saw a sparkle of potential. And she spoke life to me. For almost 14 years, she spoke life to me when I wanted to quit, when I wanted to give up, when nobody was calling, when nobody was showing up, when nobody would open up this and do that. My wife said, we've come too far. We've come too far. And I'm came to tell you today that some of you've come too far to go backwards. You come too far to minimize what you've been called to do. You've come too far to stay where you are. You've come too far to go back to where you came from. You came too far to sit next to great people and to put your dream back on the shelf because it don't compare to the person that's sitting next to you. I want to tell you this morning, that calling and comfort zones are enemies. Write that down. Calling and comfort zones are enemies. You want to do the thing that God has called you to do? I need you to understand that it will never happen in your safety net. It will never happen in your safe place. You're going to have to leave some things. You're going to have to let go of some things. You're going to have to sell some things. You're going to have to kill some things. You're going to have to kill your ego. You're going to have to kill your pride. You're going to have to kill some friendships. You're going to have to kill some language. You're going to have to kill some habits. You're going to have to kill some things in your life. Because calling will always run in the opposite direction of your comfort zone. You want God, go in your discomfort zone. The miracle is in your discomfort zone. The stretching is where it is least comfortable, is where the heat is where the pressure is. And so the reason why some of your dreams are about this big is because you don't want to get to a place where you will allow God to apply pressure to every area of your life. When I started this 8 years ago, I made a decision that I will die on the altar of my assignment before I ever go backwards. The problem with some of you is you have not made a covenant to your assignment. You have not married your calling. You have not made a commitment to the assignment. And so you are dating casually. You are side chicking your calling. You were seeing it on nights and weekends when it's convenient for you, when the money is convenient for you. But I tell you this much, I will speak to an empty chair, to an empty room, until the room begins to cry out, until the roof blow off this building, because I know who I am. I know what I've been called to do. What I want you to know is this, is that momentum does not happen in the moments in front of you. It happens in the moments where nobody knows who you are. Momentum does not happen in the moments where you expect them. Every single step you take in the process of building your dream, you are planting and watering. You are planting and watering. You are planting and watering. And the problem is that some of us have been eating our seeds before the seed can even become fruit. You've been digging up your harvest because you're frustrated. You've been digging up your harvest and giving away your harvest because why? Because you have not seen the production that you think you were supposed to have. The truth is that if you were the farmer that you thought you was, you would have the fruit that you think you deserve. But can I tell you that you aren't the farmer, you're the seed. You're the seed being planted. And can I tell you that no seed that has ever been dug up could ever bear fruit. And so every time you're about to bear fruit, you get up from where you are to go find some other sunlight, to find some other watering, to find some other scheme, some other strategy, some other course, some other coach, some other pastor. Can I tell you, it's time for you to stay put where God has planted you. It's time for you to stay put where God has planted. Some of you are in the wrong soil, not knowing that God has called you to something audacious and outrageous, and you just can't sit under any old body. Somebody said, Ira, you talked about opening up a church. No, I'm not opening up no church. Here's why. Church it's like your primary physician. They know everything about you, right? They know your data, your stats. They know everything about you. And they're going to get your physiology together. But we are surgeons at the DreamDiver company. You go to church, you're going to get exactly what you need. When you come to us, we're going to add the increase, so that together you can put that thing together and go walk out the thing that you've been called to do. And the problem is some of you have been putting your dream inside of a model that is not suited for your anointing, and you have missed exactly what you've been called to do, because it's easier for you to step into a blueprint that has already been laid. It's easier for you to step into a model that somebody can hand you. But what do you do when God gives you a dream and doesn't give you a blueprint to follow? What do you do when God tells you to build a big dream in a dry place for a wet season you've never seen? What do you do when God is calling you to build something that makes no sense, like take a chiropractic business and put it on wheels? What do you do when God tells you to build spiritual fitness? What do you do when God is telling you to be courageously authentic leadership? What do you do when God is telling you to have a boxing gym where you teach people how to fight for their life inside and outside of the ring and put Christ on your back? What do you do? And for many of us, instead of letting the seed become the epitome of the dream that God has given us, we begin to put parameters on our own dream. And so I want to clarify some things today. When people hear me say the word dream, I want to give you the definition. Take a picture, if it's easier for you, of the DreamDiver Company definition of the word dream. Here's what we're talking about. The audacious and outrageous thing that you would do to fulfill your purpose if you had unlimited time and unlimited resources. That audacious and outrageous thing that you would do to fulfill your purpose if you had unlimited time and resources. And the truth is that some of you don't have a dream, you have a goal. You got a goal. And here's the truth, is that if you could do it on your own, it's a goal. Every dream requires a dream team. There are no exceptions. Every dream requires an army of people who are walking in step with you in their God-ordained assignment. And from dream, we have purpose. Purpose is that one thing that you were born to do to add unique value to the world. It brings you alive. It maximizes your potential, and it fulfills your destiny. Let me tell you something this morning. If you were in this room and you were trying to build something outside of the area of your purpose, you're going to find yourself right back here, year in and year out. My favorite scripture says, live a life worthy of the calling for which you have been called. And I tell you that there is nothing greater for you to do with your life than the one thing that you were born to do. And the problem is that most of us are chasing everything else except the calling. Why? Because we don't know how to monetize it. And so if I can't put money to it, then clearly that's something I'm supposed to do on nights and weekends. The truth is that some of you have been frustrated in your business and your calling. It's because you've tried to attach a dollar amount to something before God even released you to monetize anything. This is what we call jumping. When you just run and jump and say, God, I've been called. I'm not going to do the work, but I'm just going to jump in. And you catch me. You pick up the pieces. You clean up the mess. But a dream diver says, I know what I've been called to. I know I've been called, but I'm going to do the work. Just like some of you who are getting ready to go to 13,000 feet with me, you've made the decision to do a crazy thing, like dive out of a plane. But before you go, you will go through process. And the problem is that some of us have been called, but we haven't gone through process. And so you get out there and you begin to execute, and what happens is you abort the dream for your life because you've moved before your process is over. Limits. We're talking about limits this morning. One of the number one reasons why you will never move forward in your life, in your area of dreams, and in your area of calling is because of the limits that have been placed on your mind and on your heart. A limit is this, a restriction on the size or the amount of what's possible. I'm going to say that again. A restriction or limit on the size and the amount of what is possible in your life. Can I tell you today that before God revealed to me in 2014 what I was supposed to be doing with my life, I had read this many books since I graduated high school, 0. But the moment I figured out what I was called to do, you could not keep me from learning what I did not know. Because I knew there were people who I did not know who were counting on me to know what I do not know. The limits that you have in your life come from a few things. Let's talk about them. Number one, other people's opinions. Oh, we're going to get real in here today. Some of you have been living in the prison of other people's opinions of you, your assignment, your past, and your destiny. And the problem is that when you live in somebody else's opinion, not only do they get to live their life, they get to live yours too. So now they get to live twice and you get to live none because you're worried about what everybody else thinks of you. I don't have time to worry about what people say because I'm going this way while they talking to my back. Because I've been called to go, not been called to stay to talk about going. And some of you are so busy talking about your going and arguing about how you're going to go. It doesn't look familiar to everybody else that you are not going. You are stuck in the prison of other people's opinions. Some of you are struggling with your past. Like Ira, you just don't know where I come from. Like my mama wasn't nothing, my daddy wasn't nothing. My family, we don't come from nothing. I don't have any of this pedigree in my background. I don't have any degrees. Can I tell you today that your past will be one of the number one reasons that keeps you from moving forward. It will keep you locked in a box for not just days and years, but decades. I know some people, whenever I talk to them about forward progression, all they can talk about is what happened in the past. And I came to tell you today that in this season of your life, that God is trying to pull you from the past trauma and pain that you've been through to get you to a place where you are free, where you are hungry, where you are humble, and when you are ready to go to the next level. Some of you, like me, have struggled with insecurity. It was about 3 years ago. I remember I was in church, and my pastor was like, "Hey, you got a gift and got a call on your life." Anybody ever heard that? And he was like, "I want you to go up there and do prayer in front of everybody." I was like, "Nope, see ya. I'll go to another church. I ain't praying in front of nobody. No, thank you." No, for real, I almost left about 14 times. I was on my way out. Can I tell you today that your perspective of your gift will determine the altitude of your destiny? Your perspective of your gift will determine the altitude of your destiny. Because nobody can elevate you to a level that you can't see for yourself. And some of us are looking for validation from everywhere else but in here and in there. Let me tell you something. If God said it, go. If God gave you the green light, move. You don't need nobody's certificate. You don't need nobody's approval. If God said do it, go. Limits, comparison. How many of y'all like to compare? How many of y'all spend all night on Instagram scrolling until you get a cramp in your bicep? Y'all laughing. Y'all been there. You got to shake it out. We have become so accustomed to running everybody else's race that you have no perspective on where you're headed. You have no awareness on your speed, your speedometer, on your lane, what you've been called to, because you're so busy looking at everybody else that you have subjected your calling into their shadow. And so when we look at what you've produced in the area of your dream, you begin to look like other people because you've lived in comparison for so long. I came to tell you today that some of the limits that you placed on yourself are unnecessary, unwarranted, if you would just understand that what is in you is the most powerful thing that you can build a life on. And your loved ones. This is a sore subject, but we're going to go there. Some of you have limits on your life from the loved ones in your life. I'm talking about your spouse. I'm talking about your grown children, your grandparents, your neighbors, your families and associations, people who told you you would never be nothing. People will tell you, who do you think you are? Your daddy didn't do it, so what makes you think you can do it? I remember when you were. I remember when you did. Anybody got some things in their past that only your family know about? Anybody got some things in their closet that whenever you begin to try to move forward, that there's some people in your life, some family and some friends who try to pull you back? Anybody know what I'm talking about? I want to give you some strategy that is going to help you move forward in your life. Y'all ready for this? Okay, here we go. Number one, if you're going to take the limits off your dreams, I need you to upgrade. I need you to upgrade. What am I talking about? I need you to upgrade your life. I need you to upgrade your friendships. I need you to upgrade your friendships. Who is in your top 5? Who you hanging with? Who you talking to? Who you texting? I need you to upgrade your life, because where you going, you can't take everybody with you. Where you going, you can't get there with the people you got around you. Because if you can get there with those people, you be there already. You got a dream so big in your heart that you're going to have to go on a crusade to find people who are of like mind, who got the skill sets to help you get to the place that you need to get to. You will have to upgrade your surroundings. And I'm not talking about casually. I'm talking about on purpose. I'm talking about open up your phone book and say, nope, they got to go. Nope, they got to go. Nope, they can stay. Nope, I don't do coffee with them. I don't go to the movies with them. Nope, they got to go. If you're going to get to the place where you're supposed to go, you're going to have to upgrade your friendships, upgrade your associations. Man, I remember when I first started doing this, I had a group of friends, man. I disappeared for like 3 years. And I would see my friends on the internet like, yo, where Ira go? Right? I would hear about little things. They going out without me. And somebody came to me and said, man, that don't bother you? I said, no, because I know who I am and who I'm becoming. And so I don't have time to be around people who are not building the thing that God has called them to be. And I'm telling you, if you're going to get to where you go, to where you're trying to go, you have to surround yourself with some people who are building. You got to surround yourself with some people who are building. So right now, as we go to this next point, I want you to begin to think in your mind, who is the number one person that you know in your life right now that you need to become best friends with, that will challenge you, hold you accountable, that will call you and check you when you are operating underneath the greatness that God has called you to? Who are those people who will put you back in check and say, I know you had a bad day. I'm going to let you cry for about 10 seconds. But after that, I need you to get up on your feet and get back to being who you were called to be. Like, who are those people in your life? And some of us, we like to get on the phone with people who will make us feel good about our misery. We like to get on the phone with people who will make it okay for us to quit. No, I need you to get around some people in your life, some titans in your life who say, nah, I know who you are. You're going to get back up and you're going to get back in the ring. I get it. You got $10 in your pocket. I guess you're going to be hungry and serving. Number 2, if you're going to take the limits of your life, I need you to make room. Make room for what? Make room for God. I need you to make room. Here's the truth. You don't need a parachute if you're going to keep your feet on the ground. And some of you are trying to do God-sized things, but you don't want God-sized risk. Some of you are trying to do some things that are so big in your own strength that you have not made room for a supernatural God to step into your situation. So the problem is you're going to get your result, but you're not going to get God's result because you haven't made room, because you got it under control. And I tell you, my number one answer whenever I'm talking to my team is bold faith. Bold faith. How are we going to do it? Bold faith. How are we going to do it? Faith. Ira, how do you do it? Faith. Why do you die? Faith. I don't know. I don't plan on knowing, but I know who knows. Let's go. And the reason why some of your dreams have not taken off is because you were trying to hold on to the reins of your life and of your calling. You have put limits on the God that you serve, preventing him from stepping into your situation. God is a gentleman. He'll never step into your situation unless you invite him. He'll never move in where he's not invited, where there's no room. The true definition, the true testament of you having a dream that is bigger than you is that the deficit is bigger than what is certain. Listen to what I'm saying. The deficit is bigger than what is already certain. Like meaning, I've already accomplished this, but this is what we are aiming towards. And if God don't step in, it ain't going to happen. And some of you have not made room for God in your dream. You say God gave it to you, but there's no room for him. So it's not a God-sized dream, it's a you dream. The truth is you'll never get the results that God has intended for you until you make room for him to be your God, not your trophy. Number 3, I need you to be relentless. I need you to be relentless. Who was here last year, April? 6 days before our event last year in April, I had shattered my entire foot and ankle. And I still hobbled my way in this room and poured my heart out and soul. Why? Because you're going to have to kill me to stop me from doing what I was called to do. And the truth is, some of you don't want it that bad. The true testament of purpose is this. If you're not willing to die for it, then you shouldn't live for it either. You didn't hear what I said. Some of y'all want a business. Some of y'all want money. Some of y'all want stuff. Some of you want fame. But nobody wants to die on the altar of what they were called to do. That's the difference between somebody who is purpose-driven and somebody who is profit-driven. Is that you will Martin Luther King, you will die doing what you were called to do. You will Jesus Christ, you will die doing what you were called to do. Somebody like, oh, Ira, that's too deep. Well, can I tell you that you don't want this? Because anybody who ever said yes to God was willing to walk through the fire to be who they were called to be. How bad do you want the thing that you say God called you to do? Are you willing to die on the altar of your credibility? Are you willing to die on the altar of she always talking about these big things, but I ain't seen no action? Are you willing to die on the altar of all these things that people think matter? You got to be relentless. You got to have some fight in you. You got to be willing to get punched in the mouth and get back up every single day. Do you have that relentless attitude about you and who you were called to be and what you were called to do? Are you willing to work it brick by brick, step by step, until you actually build what God has called you to build? Are you looking for on day one the epitome of the dream that God showed you? Can I tell you that what God showed you, you will never see that on day one? I tell people this all the time. If you're not willing to commit to at least 10 years in the assignment of what God has called you to do, you might as well go back to where you came from. Because nothing in God is overnight unless he decides to step in and perform a miracle in your life. You got to be willing to go through the process. Why? Because what he showed you is only preparation for where he's taking you. What he showed you is only preparation for where he's taking you. God always has another level beyond what he showed you. When he told Peter to cast his nets and they caught all the fish, right? He had to call his homie over. Hey, man, we got so much fish. We don't know what to do. Both start singing. They get to the shore. Peter thought that was low. That was it. Like, we caught all these fish. We rich. And Jesus was like, no, I got something beyond. Can I tell you that what you see in your heart is only a tenth of what God has for you? But you got to be relentless to get beyond where you are, to get to where he's trying to take you. I need you to live in the impossible places if you're going to take the limits off your dreams. You got to live in the impossible places. What does that mean? It's stop going where everybody else has gone to do what you've been called to do. Stop doing what everybody else has done just because it's worked before. Last time I checked, God has never made a carbon copy of anybody. And the friction you're running up against is because you're trying to do it how they did it, be who they were, follow the process that was never ordained for you. And some of us are so scared. I've been there. Some of us are so scared to show up and be who we are in places that won't even recognize you for who you are, that you have canceled out the assignment for your life. I need you to live in impossible places. Listen, if it is comfortable, run. Did you hear what I said? If it's comfortable, run, because you will die in your comfort zone. But if it terrifies you, that means you have made room for God to be your God. There is no faith until faith needs to be applied to your situation. And the truth is some of us don't want to be in a position where we have to actually use the faith we sing about. I've been in church all my life. I've seen people sing about faith, talk about faith. When it comes time to have some, ain't nowhere in sight. I'm telling you that those of you who are in this room who have been called to something incredible, your number one tool in this next season of your life is going to be your ability to live in the impossible places long enough for God to show you what's possible. You're going to have to sit there long enough for God to refine you, to make you ready for what is possible. You're going to have to go through some things, man. I'm trying to tell you. You're going to have to go through some things. There's going to be some days, Erica, where you're going to want to throw in the towel. There's going to be some days where you want to duke it out with God himself. Like, man, am I crazy or you crazy? Because I know what I heard, and nothing about what I heard make any sense. But the truth is this. Only 1% of people will ever actually change the world. Only 1% of people will actually ever do anything to change the world. Most people will live a life where they maintain what the world has already created. If you're going to be a part of the 1% that actually change the world, you have got to live in the impossible places. I want you to think about this. Anything that you do, use, touch, or enjoy was created or invented by somebody who lived in the impossible place because it didn't exist. And some of you have been called to do some things that don't yet exist. But you're looking for somebody to give you a roadmap and a blueprint and God and say, baby, I trust you enough to drop you in the jungle, give you a machete, and then I know if I come back in a week, you'll build a whole village. The problem is you don't trust yourself as much as God does. You don't trust yourself as much as God does. And the ultimate sign of disrespect to God is to limit the size of the dreams that he's given you. Because what you're saying is, God, I heard you, but what I say is more prevalent and more real than what I've heard. Here's what I need you to know. When we dive out of planes at 13,000 feet, this is the ultimate exercise in burning the boats. The problem is, and I've lived this life too, where I want to trust God in what I've been called to do, but I also want to stay in the boat. Where I want to trust God in what I've been called to do, but I also want to stay in the boat. Can I tell you this? Is you can either walk the path in front of you or you can walk on water. You can't do both. You can either walk the path that other people walked or you can walk on water. You can't do both. Jesus walked with 12 disciples. Only one got off the boat to walk with him. Ever. Ever. Ever, ever. A question for you today is if you get the invitation to walk on water with Jesus, are you going to do it? Or are you going to be like the 11? No shame. No shame. Will you be the one who say, God, I heard the crazy instructions, and I dropped everything to meet you in an impossible place. I was willing to get all the way out of my comfort zone, not just took my foot in it, not just put my toe in it, but I was willing to get all the way out the boat. All the way? All the way. 7 years ago, after I left the Marine Corps, God says, you will not work a full-time job. I said, but you don't understand. I got bills. I got mouths to feed. You understand what I'm saying? I got two boys back there that eat everything. Everything? Everything. God said, you will not work a full-time job. I said, why? He said, man, it would have taken me double the amount of time to make you into the man that you are today if you only gave me your nights and weekends. I said, so God, what you're telling me is I got to live in the hard place. What you're telling me is I got to tell people to go live what they've been called to live, and I'm struggling to put gas in my own tank. What you telling me is I got to borrow money from people and still get up and do what I've been called to do. What you're telling me is you give me a dream that has so many intricate pieces that are unfamiliar in certain industries and certain spaces and put them all together, and you want me to explain that to people. What you're telling me is, God, you want me to begin to dive out of planes, and I'm terrified of heights. I tell you today, man, if you're truly going to take the limits off your dreams, there's only one true way, and that's with a yes. That's with a yes. I told my wife, I said, man, babe, I think God is calling us to pastor. And she was like, you think? She said, you might as well just go and give him your yes. That's how my wife talked to me, y'all. You might as well just go and give him a yes. And what I realized was this. Is that my yes did not come in the form of other people's yeses. My yes looked like my yes. And God has called you to be a pastor in your lane. But you're afraid to answer the call. Because you think it's supposed to look like everybody else's yes. And I tell you, we don't need another for you to be another. Because everybody's going to the other. So when are you going to be the one? There are some people who will never, ever get the miracle that God has promised them until you recognize that he's called you to pastor in your lane. I don't care if you make shoestrings or bow ties. There is a miracle message that God has planted on the inside of you. I don't care if you sell cars or real estate. There is a message in your heart. Your product and service is just a tool for God to shine his glory through. You want to take the limits off your dream? Say yes. That's it. Every time I get on that plane, I'm like, what are you about to do, fool? And then I look out the window and I say yes. God told me very seriously, he said, your pulpit will be at 13,000 feet. If you speak from anywhere else, the world won't hear you. And for some of you, you've been screaming your message. You've been trying to get things to people, and you're not understanding that God has given you a very specific platform. I need you to get to it. I need you to get in it. I need you to own it. I need you to steward it. I need you to pastor it, and I need you to go all in. You got to burn the boats. You got to stop half doing it. You got to stop half stepping. You got to stop putting your toe in it. It's time for some of you in this room. Come on, Chantel. It's time for some of you in this room to get to your next level. You didn't come here to hear a man tell you it's time to take the limits off your dreams. You came here because God has already been speaking that into your life. And some of you have been waiting in the wing for somebody to co-sign your calling. You've been waiting in the wing for somebody to sign off on what you've been called to. Can I tell you, newsflash, if you're in this room, you've been called. I don't care if you're working. I don't care if you're taking out the trash. You've been called to something. You're in a season right now where God is coming after you. He's coming after you. Because this next wave of what God is about to do is not going to happen in a pew. It's not. It ain't going to happen in no pew. You are the goal that he was talking about in Matthew. You are the disciple he was talking about. Some of us wear jeans. Some of us wear sneakers. But you are the goal. And I've made a commitment to you and to God. Chantel, you can go ahead and play. I made a commitment to you and God that I will not leave this earth until I send maximum amount of people to heaven being able to answer the question, did you do the thing that I called and created you to do? Here's the crazy part. I told you I've been in church my whole life, crazy. And I've seen so many people who were saved but lost. They're going to heaven but have no idea what they're doing here. It's as if once they get saved, they just might as well die because they ain't going to do nothing here. This is not the season for you to be existing. This is not the season for you to be pondering and meandering. This is work season. This is building season. This is launching season. This is birthing season. I don't care if you call it business, ministry, nonprofit. Get to building. Pick up a shovel and build. Nehemiah was building a wall and they tried to come at his head. He said, we're going to build and fight. This is building season. You got to be relentless about what God has placed in your heart. Why? Because nobody else is going to believe you until you produce some fruit. And you've been thinking you got haters in your life. You don't have no haters, man. You have 0 haters. The truth is, nobody believes nothing they can't see. That's just fact. That's not hate. If I can't see it, therefore it doesn't exist, which means you crazy. So in order to prove yourself worthy, you got to water the seed. You got to show up and build when there's nobody there. I was in my living room speaking at a camera, talking about do the thing you were created and called to do. Over and over and over and over, talking to no one in my apartment. Like, God, when you going to come rescue me? When you going to stop making me look like a fool? When can I stop building this thing in isolation? When God says, I got you in the process. Because where I'm taking you, I'm developing you. You see a living room, but baby, this is an incubator. Problem is we won't start where we are with what we have to get to who we've been called to. I don't care what you got or what you don't have. Stop looking at what you're missing and start looking at what you're missing. You are overlooking what God has given you, hoping that he will give you something else. You've already got keys in your pocket. You've already got keys to the assignment. What will you do with them? What you going to do with them? What will you do with them? Other than compare yourself to other people. And while you're comparing yourself to other people's year number 10, not realizing that you're on day number 10, God is saying, I'm preparing you for something you can't even see yet. Problem is I think most of us have misidentified ourselves. You have misidentified yourself. If you're in the room today, you are a pioneer, you are a visionary, or you are a world changer. And I will go to my grave before I take it back.